trying to work with Stephanie in developing some cultural resources within the university. We spoke with her as well as Chancellor Straney on how we can move forward with some of these things to implement some of the things in the cultural resource management plan. At this time, like I said, we're just reviewing, but at some point we're looking at possibly advising to revise some of these things. After 5 years, things need to get crossed off or things need to be implemented to move forward with the cultural resource management plan. That's about it. Actually, we have our next meeting tomorrow where we would have more discussion points and going into detail regarding these issues. So I can't really give anything else but just to say where we're at right now.
Okay, well, thank you, Shane. I appreciate the report. Any board members have any question of Shane? Herring?
Shane, this is Herring. Thank you very much. Mahalo.
All right, Shane, I appreciate the report and certainly the proposed changes and amendments to the Cultural Resource Management Plan are timely, and we'll be looking at the entire comprehensive management plan as we go forward over the next few months. Excuse me, when I have time for public, I'll ask. Thank you. Just one moment. I think there are a number of changes that need to be looked at and reviewed and updated, and I'm glad that Kahu Kumauna is taking the lead and already started on that road. As we go forward through the meeting chain, I know how difficult it is to attend video or through conferencing like this, so please, if you want to make a comment, please speak up or ask any questions, and we'll try to be cognizant of your position away from us today, but we do want you to be able to participate.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it.
Yes, Lehua?
Timeline, what are the timeline we're looking at this point?
For the revision?
Yeah, for the revision.
So the CMP 5 years is up, so we've begun to start looking at it, but we want to be able to work with Kakumana and the Mauna Kea Management Board on discussing further and do a critical review of the CMP. The 5-year period for the sub-plans is this year, but we may just do it together in conjunction with the CMP because they were, the cultural resources and the natural resources management plan were integral in the development of the CMP. So we're looking probably over the next 6 months or so.
Kiimani?
Will this then include the sub-plans as well? So we'll be reviewing the access plan
Yes.
and the decommissioning plan as well.
Correct.
Thank you.
All the plans in conjunction, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Corey, you had I'm sorry, Lehua?
Point of clarification, who's involved with the review of the CMP, the revision?
So OMCAM will take the lead on reviewing it, and then we will consult with Kahukumana, and then also have discussion here with Mauna Kea Management Board.
Kehlani?
So public review and comments on the plans can be done at the public meetings that the Mauna Kea Management Board holds. Also, may they come forward at Kahuku-Mauna meetings or online?
What we did with when we were developing the CMP and the sub-plans is that we did open houses to provide the public an opportunity to come at their leisure to be able to review and ask questions of the office.
So they'll be duly published.
Yeah, right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Corey, you had a question?
Yeah, Shane mentioned that the cultural management plan was supposed to be reviewed last year. Was that just by Kahu Kumana or by the board as a whole?
My understanding is the CMP is due now, and the cultural management plans are later this year. Is that correct, Stephanie?
Correct.
Correct. So it's not up yet.
It's not correct that it was due last year.
That's correct.
That's correct. It is not correct. Any other questions? Okay. We'll now skip back to Stephanie's report.
Aloha and good morning. On February 17th, the office went before the Department of Hawaiian Homeland's Commission, which heard their staff's report about our proposal to use the Humu'ula Sheep Station as a staging area for the commercial tour clients before coming up to the visitor information station, primarily to reduce vehicle congestion, and people who are needing to eat their dinners before going up to the summit. And the commissioners weren't real comfortable with the $4 fee that was being proposed, and they asked that they table this. And instead, they wanted to go forward with the second part of our proposal, which was to look at the junction area of the Saddle Road and the Mauna Kea Access Road as a place where we can park vehicles, and then DHHL would run a shuttle system from there to the visitor information station, as well as provide a shuttle system from the visitor information station to the summit. We envision this would also help to reduce the number of vehicles at the Viz. It'll provide an opportunity for DHHL for a revenue generating opportunity for them to generate funds to implement their Aina Mauna legacy plan. So DHHL staff is looking into the feasibility of doing this, and we'll continue to work with them on developing this program, and we'll bring this information back to the board. We met with the consultant, Kober Hansen Mitchell Architects, about our needs assessment for facilities and infrastructure improvements in the visitor information station area. Primarily, we're looking at safety to accommodate visitors who are coming up in increasing numbers, parking, vehicular and pedestrian flow. We're also looking at ways to improve the visitor information station facilities for us to be able to do the public orientation, to have better exhibits, to be able to manage the numbers of people who are coming, and to have some educational areas for us to be able to do programs. So we're waiting they should be coming out with their conceptual design in a few weeks. We talked a little bit with Shane about this comprehensive management review. It's been 5 years, and so we started to take steps at looking at the CMP. We would like to work with Kahuku Mauna as well as the Mauna Kea Management Board in amendments or necessary amendments to those plans. We've hired 2 part-time rangers, and they will be assisting our full-time ranger corps on the weekends primarily, which are the busier days of the week. So they have started, one started a few months ago and one just started a couple weeks ago. Volunteer statistics for 2014. In 2014, OMKM hosted 9 volunteer invasive weed pull events, during which 283 volunteers put in about 2,000 hours and filled approximately 400 bags of weeds. These volunteers include members of the Hawaii Island Chamber of Commerce, Hilo student groups, general community members. There were also a number of youth student organizations, including the Circle K, which is part of the Kiwanis Youth Group, Interact, which is part of the Rotary Youth Group, Hawaii National Guard, Youth Challenge Academy, and Ke'ana La'ahana Public Charter School, and Hawaii Academy of Arts and Sciences. So we have quite a diversity of people coming up to help us with these weed pulls. And they get a nice little orientation by Fritz and his group about some of the natural resources in the area, the native plants and the native insects that are found there. And they are given lunch, and they also are entertained by a speaker, and the topics range from astronomy to natural sciences to studies that we're doing here and culture. So the combined total spanning from 2012 through April of 2015, we had a total of 700 volunteers who put in about 5,000 hours of pulling weeds and filling about 1,100 bags of weeds. And of course, the long-term goal of this whole effort is to eventually revegetate the visitor information station area, or the mid-Halepohaku area, with Hawaiian native plants. Since the program began, we had about 1,220 employees who have gone through the cultural and natural resources orientation. This represents about 93% of all the employees or individuals who have some working relationship on the mountain. So this includes observatory personnel, construction crew members, vendors, viz, arrangers, UH staff. Kahuku has asked that we solicit feedback from those attending the orientation. Some of the survey responses reflect the type of diversity of opinions. It ranges from feedback ranges from being very informative and interesting to not useful at all. Suggestions including putting more photos and discussions on the resources, and perhaps more visuals such as graphs to help depict some of our information in the orientation. And then finally, on April 23rd, OMKM Kamchan for Kahuku together with members of Imiloa, Institute of Astronomy, Canada France Hawaii Telescope, the Hawaii Ant Lab, West Hawaii Astronomy Club, One Earth Message, and UH Hilo Spatial Data Analysis and Visualization Lab helped Kealikehi Elementary School organize their first annual science showcase. In addition to the school science fair where students were displayed their science projects, OMKM and its partners offered a variety of fun science activities ranging from coloring and stamping activities, flora and fauna ecosystem games, bug identification, archaeology, Earth magnetic fields games, unmanned vehicle flight simulator, Earth and surrounding solar system, to a planetarium show. One Earth had an information booth and activities relating to caring for our Earth, and the Hawaii Ant Lab had information booths on fire ants and take-home surveying kits. I'm happy to report that this was well attended both by parents and children. So this is the first. It was a very successful event, and they're already thinking about next year. And that's it.
Hey, board members, any question of Stephanie on her executive director's report? Okay. Yes, Lehua.
The Aina Mauna Legacy Department of Hawaiian Home, is that accessible? How do we get a copy of that?
It's available on the website, right?
Yeah,
Mike Robinson just works for Hawaiian Home House.
yeah, it's available on the website. In fact, you can Google Aina Legacy and it'll get you right there.
Corey?
I probably don't know the answer to this question yet, but I just want to throw it out as a concern. You mentioned the possible shuttle where people have to park at the bottom, and if they want to go to the visitor center, they need to take the shuttle. If they are carrying a protest sign, will they be allowed on the shuttle?
I would imagine so, provided it's not going to obstruct other passengers.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there's more proposals for infrastructure, right? Near the Mauna. And I was just wondering because the cultural resource management plan hasn't even been looked at for about a year, it's outdated. But there's more proposals for infrastructure. So how does that work? Like, I don't understand, like, the management plan it hasn't even been looked at, or it hasn't even been, reviewed for the last, it's supposed to be every 5 years, and now it's gonna go into another couple months, another 6 months, you guys proposing that it's gonna be reviewed. I don't understand how come there's more proposals for infrastructure and structures to go up when the management plan isn't even being looked at. It's not even like, it's like 6 months. The community is saying no. You know what I mean? Like, we have major things going on in the Mauna right now, as far as construction is concerned. And there's been more proposals for more infrastructure. I don't understand how our community, over 50,000 people, is being ignored. It's just one voice of my own kupuna and the people I represent that's my keiki. And I don't understand how we mismanaging resources. And we're perpetuating that as a community. You guys are our leaders. I don't understand how that's being ignored. More proposals, more proposals, more proposals. What is that gonna get us? You know what I mean? We gotta look at what we get, which is the management plan, and that's being ignored. So I just wanna know, you know, how long are we gonna perpetuate this idea that we're going to keep proposing infrastructure and we're not even looking at the infrastructure that we have to take care to Malama? I don't know, I just kinda, you know, it's only like 15 minutes into this meeting and, you know, I just voicing the concerns of, you know, my lahui, which is the future of Hawaii. So,
Thank you for your comments and understand it and appreciate that. I think that we are in the process of reviewing the management plan. Until the management plan is amended, the existing management plan is in effect and will be followed until that plan is amended. So, but I
and then more
appreciate your
proposals.
comments.
More proposals and go for infrastructure.
That's correct. We will continue to manage the mountain based on the plans that exist currently.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
Understandable.
All right, next item on the agenda is committee reports. Environment Committee, Roger?
Yeah, I defer that to Rex.
Okay, Fritz?
Let's see. There has not been an environment committee since the last management board meeting. We're currently in the process of trying to schedule one, so this is more just programmatic updates. The next environment committee will probably be either later this month or sometime in June. Staff-wise, it's getting close to summer, so we'll have some interns coming on. There'll be a PIPES intern, and I forget exactly what PIPE stands for. Pacific. Jess, do you remember?
Internship program for Explain Science.
Okay, Jess was a PIPES intern. That's how she joined OMKM. There'll be a PIPES intern with Dr. Ryan Peroy on the erosion project. We're working on getting a second position. Actually, after this, have an interview with a second potential PIPES intern for working with the Visitor Information Station and the CIP project that Stephanie mentioned before on improvements to the public facilities. And then we'll be working with an intern from the forest team, Hawaii Community College forest team intern, just providing field support to OMKM summer field work, the arthropod biodiversity study, the erosion work, the permafrost study, any of the various field work, so forest team student. Sort of research and monitoring wise, Amber just mentioned in the last monthly update that we do we keep track of the geocaches that are registered up on the mountain, both on university managed lands and adjacent forest reserve and Hawaiian homelands. There was a one that was recently added at the end of late March, and it's right near the road, either in forest reserve or Hawaiian homeland, so it's getting a lot of visitation, but nothing on university managed lands. There are 2 geocaches on university managed lands, and they're referred to as virtual caches, meaning you go to look at one of the webcams, or people that go up to the summit, there's a little educational module that's administered by the Geological Society of America and talks about the resources and staying on trails. And so it's a positive message. And the other geocaches where people were being told to look through Ahu and find little markers have been removed. Vacu bug sampling, Dr. Iben did some field work in late February, captured over 100 vacu bugs in all life stages. Somewhat a pleasant find given the fact that it's been a snowy winter, that there were all life stages in the summer cinder cones. But he'll be doing some more sampling here coming up later this month once classes and exams are done, the status update, and then we're just getting started planning our annual field work here for sometime in June. So we'll be doing our annual monitoring for alien arthropods and vacu bugs again come June. Invasive species plan-wise, we have a few more appendices or standard operating procedures to go to the Environment Committee for their next meeting. So we'll be sending a few of those around. Threat identifying species, threat priorities, sort of procedures for updating the plan, just some of the appendices that were listed as in progress. So those will be for review. We've also been working with some of the more recurring delivery entities, the water tanker trucks, the portable potties, the septic companies, the groups that do the routine deliveries up there to make sure that they're following best practices and we don't need to inspect every water tanker delivery that goes up when they're going up multiple times a week, that we don't have to look at everything. So that's ongoing, and those are actually updates that we make to the website. Once we add a company, we just add it to the website as long as they're complying. Let's see, arthropod monitoring of facilities. So we typically every quarter we go to all the facilities, including Halepohaku, and look for arthropod threats outside and inside. Given the activity at the Halepohaku parcel, we've increased that to weekly at Halepohaku. So every week we're monitoring for arthropods outside in the university managed lands at Halepohaku. We haven't found any new threats there in the Halepohaku parcel. On April 16th, though, in coordination with the Big Island Invasive Species Committee and Department of Forestry and Wildlife, we did find ants, Oceatellus glaber, in the forest reserve. It was in the pile of leftover roof thatching of a native or a non-native fan palm that was reported to have been brought from Waimea. And so that was reported to DOFA, and DOFA the following week went out with some bait stations to try and eliminate that population. At least they're hard to get to come to bait sometimes. So DOFA put out bait stations and has been up once since then to check on the bait stations and work with the community to see how things are going. And also the ohio posts that are there were of concern, and the Fish and Wildlife Service actually collected samples of the wood for the rapid ohia death fungus. And forgive me if I'm going to pronounce this wrong, ceratocystis. It's the rapid ohio death that's been recently discovered. It was in the newspaper in February of this year. It's different from the ohio dieback that you've been hearing about for the past 20 or 30 years. This is a very rapid death problem, and it can happen in a matter of weeks that the tree will just die, and it's poorly understood. Flint Hughes at the Forest Service, Lisa Keith with Agricultural Resource Service, and J.B. Friday with UH Extension have been doing a lot of research on that. Let's see, it's been a little while, but the Hawaii State Science Fair was back in March, I think. Megan Nakamoto, who worked with Dr. Iben on arthropod biodiversity and differences in curled versus uncurled mamani leaves, went to the State Science Fair and did very well. We're very happy for her. Special thanks on that note to Jesse and Debbie Ward for going up recently and talking with the public at Halepohaku about ant threats on the mountain. There are some Aole ants signs in the back that it was some of the information that's been shared just about the fact that there are no native ants on Mauna Kea above Halepohaku, and we're trying to keep it that way. There is one species that's found in the road gravel, but that's the only thing. It doesn't come to bait. You don't find it at the garbage cans, but it's in Hakalau Refuge. It's on Mauna Road. It's on the Summit Access road, but only as far up as Halepohaku, and we knock it back whenever we find it. It's a very isolated population. The only way we find it is by pulling non-native plants. We've never gotten it to come to a bait. So, and with that, as Stephanie mentioned, with weed pulls, we've had some groups expressed interest, and so we'll be trying to set up some weed pulls again here, probably either later in May or most likely sometime in June. So, with that.
Thanks, Fritz. I have a couple of questions. With regard to the vehicle monitoring, does that increase according to the threats? You and I were talking earlier about the fireweed that's proliferating across Pohakuloa training area. With that increase, would vehicle monitoring for seeds being carried increase? And then, so you can have the mic back. The rapid Ohia death, is the vector for that identified yet?
For rapid Ohia death, I'm gonna have to say I don't know. It's not my area of expertise. Yeah, there have to do some reading. I don't know if Jesse, do you know what the vector is?
It doesn't have a vector, it's its own sporulation.
Okay.
So it's wind or water deposit.
Okay, thank you. In terms of fireweed proliferation, I think the biggest, there is certainly, vehicles are always a vector. You find more along sort of classic invasive species spread as along road corridors. It's also been a wet winter, so we've been finding, Jessica was out the other day and she's been noticing that looks like mamani trees are sprouting, so we're getting seed set with mamani if we think. So hopefully, it's been a wet winter, which is good for a lot of different reasons. So I think the bigger issue there is it's just been moist, and it's been so, compared to the past few years of extended drought. The routine deliveries that we work with, most of the companies that do regular deliveries end up actually have company policies that they wash their vehicles every day. So like Island Topsoil that delivers the water to PTA and to Mauna Kea, their drivers are required to wash their vehicles before they go up the mountain. I don't know if that answers your question though.
Yes, my concern would be even if a vehicle is cleaned at low elevation, when it comes up and it drives through an area where there's this abundance, and the abundance may be seasonal, is there any way that they can, I don't know, if there's a cleaning substation at a mid-elevation site?
Yeah, so one of the CMP action items is actually to look into the feasibility of a vehicle wash station. So that's something that we'll be actually started working on, trying to figure out how to frame that question so that we get at both the scientific sides of is it going to be efficient scientifically, or sort of that there's some scientific rigor if you have a requirement, but also the economics of it. How would you do that? How would it operate? Where would the water come from? How much would it cost to operate? There's a suite of issues that are not just stopping the invasive species.
Thanks for your help.
I have a quick question.
Any other board members' questions? Okay, yes, sir.
Regarding the monitoring of Halepohaku and the vicinity around, you said they come up once a week, is that correct?
Our office has been monitoring the university managed lands on a weekly basis now. Normally we had been doing it more on a quarterly basis, but given increased use, we've been monitoring it UH managed lands weekly.
Okay, I have an issue with that because I've been up there every other day for the past 40 days, and we haven't seen anybody monitoring until we built the Kauhale. That's the first time we've seen a monitor there. That was about day 24, 25. As soon as we built the Kauhale and it was up, nobody, the whole 3 days that it was being built, 2.5 days, nobody seen an ant anywhere until the monitors came around and dug up a little zone under a little area under you said the palm fronds. And then there was a small, they told us that there was ants. And that just, all of a sudden there's monitors after 20-something days, and then there's ants. After 50 or more people worked with the palm fronds first-handedly, not experiencing any ants prior to a monitor of your staff.
So most of our monitoring, we don't, because we're on university managed lands, we don't go around and announce that we're there for monitoring, and quite frankly, it's not going to look that much different than any other visitor that's up there, other than we're looking at the grass, pulling weeds. We'll look in parking lots. Some of the parking lots are not, there's there, where the equipment is parked, there's where the observatory staff park, there's the visitor information station, there's the gravel lots below that. So there, I mean, when we go up daily, we're not always going to the same locations every day. So some of that, I guess I wouldn't be surprised that we wouldn't be noticed. But we,
I'm questioning the expertise and the volume of monitoring. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because we're there all the time and we haven't seen you guys since that day and before.
Okay. So we're following the methods that are outlined in the invasive species plan, and that are on the OMKM website. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to talk to you about the methods. We've actually been talking a little bit about having sort of an open house of some sort up at Halepohaku to talk a little bit more with those that are interested about what we do, what our monitoring entails, and how often we do it, and where we monitor and that kind of stuff. The monitoring in the forest reserve land is done in coordination with the forest reserve staff. So that was after discussion with forest reserve staff that they were interested in having us do some monitoring on their side of the road.
Are there any other questions on the Environment Committee report? Corey?
Greg,
Oh, yeah. Shane?
sorry, Greg. Thanks, Fritz, for the report on the environmental. That was pretty good. What I wanted to mention, Greg, again, I don't want to sound like a sounding board regarding the CRMP and its affiliation to the CMP. I think that what I want to reiterate is the urgency for the OMKM to really take a look at the action plans, because some of these monitoring issues coming up, as well as invasive species, should include a cultural resource person involved. And they've given that task to Kahuku Mauna, and we're a volunteer advisory council. And so, again, you know, I know that I don't want to sound like a resounding board, but some of these issues coming up, and even on the agenda, we should have a Native Hawaiian Committee report to coincide with the Environmental Committee. And I know that it's all up for review right now, but this is the urgency I want to place as far as advising OMKM and MKMB as well.
Thank you, Shane.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Fritz for the report.
I have I think it kind of behooves us at this point. I think what Shane is mentioning in terms of trying to take a look at the timeline and how do we redo the timeline, because I think the urgency is there. I think I'm kind of confused in regards to the monitoring piece and the practices that are being practiced at this point, and how do we get copies of what is being monitored and how are they being monitored, because I think that's kind of, I like to know that.
Yeah.
I want to know that. And just because I don't want to sit here and then, pretend that I'm reading this thing. But in actuality, I need to understand the best practices.
Yeah, I agree. We were going to talk about a time frame in our meeting tomorrow as well, but I didn't want to bring that up in today's meeting. But I agree.
I think that this conversation just speaks also to the timeliness of having discussions that can bring members of the public as well as the respective boards and committees up to speed historically. I think I'm the only one that has been here since the pre-office of Mauna Kea Management days, and there are historic experience and memories that I have, but they are not shared universally among us. So even if it's in the form of an orientation binder that gives us a timeline that includes when reviews are to take place, but just to bring folks up to speed, because some of us, the longer you sit here, the more exposure you have to the protocols that were instituted at the time that the plans were adopted. But many of us that are sitting at this table clearly have not had that exposure. So it would allow all of us to sit, as Lehua says, with some integrity, rather than having to be refreshed continually.
And I would like to echo that. In order for us to move forward, we have to be able to look at our past. I think when I accepted the position, there's some historical context that was not necessarily part of the job, and in reviewing some of those pieces. And if we're moving forward, especially at this time, I would love to hear what had happened at that time in order for us to kind of garner some level of understanding on some of the things that have happened prior during what Hannah has done. So I think that's out of respect for the past board members as well as any other community people as well. So mahalo nui.
And just one more thing, it doesn't necessarily need to be in the form of a business meeting, I'm not suggesting that, but perhaps it could take the form of a meeting where there's a single agenda item, which is to have this sort of historic review, or in a retreat format.
What year was that?
Which one? Began in 1998.
1998. Okay, I came in 2000. That's when everything started, but really, I like to share everybody, and just wanted to say, what Lihu was saying, what everybody's saying, what the community is saying, is 100% correct.
Yo.
So now, as we're going forward, really, this is what I ask. I want to ask if there's a record of the Kahuku when we first started. Because I was on the board, the Kupuna, which means the opposite of that. I was the youngest one on that board that say to pick 5 kupunas from the 5 districts.
Yo.
Is that correct? Okay. Now, I know definitely for East Hawaii, I had presented a name of Pulani, Kanahele, Kanakaoli. Now, for the other district, is all I'm going to say, but I'm really interested because Kahukumanu, that's where they gave birth. Now my question is, this is me, just sharing a little bit about myself. When I volunteer for things, when I volunteer, which means no money, okay? I volunteer. I make sure I follow up. That's why I'm here and I hear. So I know we haven't been communicating. Kahukumana with the new boards coming in as we rotating, the management board as we rotating. We're talking about education and learning the culture. 100% with that. But I think we're on a good thing and the urgency is there. We need to find the vehicle to make that urgency work and it's no problem. The only thing I ask everybody is from our heart and be humble and listen and we're going to get things done. I know for a fact because that mountain there, I went up there, not culturally, but part of the culture is gathering rights. I've been a hunter for my young days with my grandparents, my uncles, and everybody up on the mountain. I went all over the place. And all my grandfather told me all the time, respect what is there. I get no problem with that. Now, I'm in the 4th generation, going on to the 5th generation, which is my grandchildren and all that. You know, getting off the subject, but I think it's very important what I have to say. And I will end it. We gather the kokolau. How many of you know there's a kokolau tea up there on the mountain? Raise your hand. I want to see. Raise your hand. Okay. Now the next thing. Oh, hello, Barry. Raise your hand. Okay, I say everybody. It's not for jam. It's not for jelly. For us, it's tea. All tea. And whatever is up there, that's why, you know, you first need to hear this. Because I know plenty of you are here, and I want all of you to go back and go share and tell you came from Uncle. Born and raised in Kyoka, celebrated 90 years ago. The whole family is there. The roots are all there, 90 years. And I find it's a big responsibility for me to make things correct. Because I tell you right now, my family is on the culture side. My family is on the education side, which we talk about everything. You know, volcano, oceanography, you name it. And we all got to remember today, and everybody must understand, the state of Hawaii must understand that this island get all the resources, and if we do them right, it's gonna be known throughout the world. So go out there, do your research, and you folks gonna know that. And taking the lead will be the new generation and all that. I get one letter in here. I just going to tell you folks, go read it. If I didn't take it out, but I have a letter from Kalakaua. And I think it was 1873. But if I get that letter, I can make sure that you folks can read them. And the last thing I have said before I finish, and I'm not going to say nothing to the meeting, and no questions, nobody ask me questions. You go figure them out, then you give Uncle the answer. Okay, here's the thing. Every ali'i, every organization we get, Kamehameha Schools, Queen Emma Foundation, Lili Okalani Trust, all these trusts, if you look at them, 100+ years. So now we all here, and why I'm saying this, I'm proud to see the young generation, because it's not about me, not about them. It's about the next generation. And the thing where I am afraid of, the kupunas are leaving, and guess what? I want junior kupuna without knowing. So the responsibility is great, but we cannot move forward. We cannot bring things in the past. The past is past, the present is present, and the present got to be corrected, so the future don't have to do what we're all doing here today. Okay, we all understand. Okay. And my grandfather, I'm proud to say, I was raised right. I hear, you first go check my record. Go check my record. And we talk about America, we talk about that. Don't go there. I don't want to hear it. I'm going to ask one more question. Those of you who serve in the military, raise your hand. High, I need to see you. Raise them high. Okay, look at the generation today. The whole nation is telling them, thank you for your service. I want to let you know, I was in the Vietnam War, 21 years old, combat medic. I'll give you a history. My grandfather was in World War I. My dad was World War II. The rest of my family was Korean War. Almost every generation to today been in. And I've been telling the family, you serve with honor and don't make our name shame. So, you see, over there, when the hunting was, when DLR was shooting all the sheep from the helicopter. If they shoot by one, for years they got a kill. But with automatic, you can kill anything you like. But if you're a hunter, you know where to shoot them. And if you cannot shoot them, you're not going to get them. So that's what I'm saying. You're throwing away food from the table. You folks don't understand, and like you folks go back and tell them out there, let them know. I see that this table, I on there, and my thing is, I want us to be win-win. Because I don't want to see my grandchildren in this place or any other place for meeting. And I like Mike, stand up. Mike, you stand up. No, I want Mike to stand up. Mike, please stand up. Don't stand up, Mike. I like everybody tell me why he's here. Tell me why he's here. Anybody can raise your hand. Those who know the answer, hang them down. I'm going to choose who's going to give answer. Okay, I don't know you. You know who I am? After I finish my speech, you know?
I know who you are, Uncle.
You know who
Yes, I do.
am? Okay, who is he?
That is Mike Robinson from DHHL.
Okay. Okay, Mike? So everybody know he's DHHL. So if you get any questions about the plan of Anna, like Lihu was saying, go on the website. Mike, tell them what I do to you all the time when you do real good.
You advise me, you give me counsel.
There you go. And he get no excuse because I'm a kupuna, but I don't boss you around. The difference between he and I, he collects, I don't collect. I give back. So I'm proud of him doing that. But if we don't guide leaders, it's not going to happen. And we got to remember, I do it Now what my grandparents tell me 60 plus years ago is giving back. The more you give, the more you get. All those of you, your parents or your grandparents or great-grandparents, great will tell you, raise your hand. Alex, your hand. Put on my pie. Put on my pie. Okay. So now, make a difference. Because Shane, I thanked him because they invited me to 2 of Kahukumana meeting, and I want to make sure it works. With Lehua, with everybody here, we're going to make it work. And so, Malani,
Yes.
you okay with that? That we all try and make the thing best. Because that's the next generation. When I'm not here, he's here. I will hold him accountable. The next question again. Anybody from Kyokaha or Panaeva or from Waimea on homestead land in Kona, wherever, raise your hand or you stand up. I like seeing you folks. Stand up. Because I'm going to give you guys all one challenge. And one commitment. That you guys make sure the next generation, I'm going to hold you folks all accountable to be the leaders. When I'm not here, and all of you, the grandchildren, I will let them know. When you first get time, put your name on the list. Just this meeting. I don't care about outside because you guys came here. And we're going to settle. And this meeting is the first meeting I think we should move forward. Leaders going to make mistakes. But I hear the problem. We need to correct it. And we cannot do them together. Then it's not going to work. So we need to do, and we move on from here. So, Secretary, give me one paper. I like the names. Because I'm going to tell everybody, if you from Waimea, what please?
Panaeva.
Panaeva. Kyokaha, Panaeva. Who else? Brother.
Panaeva and Kyokaha.
Okay. All of those you will stand up. Hawaiian Homestead, wherever he was he from Kyokaha? Raise your hand. Okay, all good. Aku okay or aku not okay? Huh? Perfect, okay. Everybody agree? Shane, you okay? You heard me loud enough?
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Okay, Shane. Okay, I think that's what everybody wanted to hear. And it took me years to get that. And I went all over the place and listened. You know something? It breaks my heart because you folks, as long as we get these, we're all family. And if Uncle do wrong, you think Uncle stay off track, let me know. But just remember, when you let me know, Uncle will, get promoted, Junior Kupuna. So when dad, grandparents, everybody leave, Uncle will be there. Uncle might be not all there over here, but correct Uncle, because I like to make the next generation be the leaders to move forward. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Like always, you bring us great wisdom. Thank you. All right, other question, Corey?
Yeah, about the environmental management committee. I wonder when the last meeting was and if there's any formal or informal expectation as to how often they meet.
Jessica, do you remember when the last time was we met? The date? I think it was January. Offhand, I don't recall.
January, 5 months ago.
Yeah, so we missed the last meeting. Normally we meet roughly quarterly, and we're just sort of. It's been a busy couple months, so we're a little behind.
Yeah.
So we have a poll out to try and schedule the next meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there gonna be a next meeting before, a TM, I mean, is it the monitoring gonna increase or whatever when they propose to start construction? I mean, is it gonna increase, like what is your folks, is that something that you're gonna discuss at the next committee meeting? The timeline as far as what you folks monitor and the invasive species and all the endemic species up there and the impact that it might have and all that kind of stuff.
So you're asking about monitoring associated with the 30-meter telescope construction?
With the increased activity that might be proposed to happen on the summit, or that is being proposed to happen on the summit.
So I guess the best way I can answer that is the 30-meter telescope construction permit requires increased monitoring, and some of that has started already because it was required to start pre-construction. So There's weekly and monthly monitoring that's required with the 30-meter telescope, and that started because it was part of their permit. So, and yeah, offhand I don't recall the exact date that started. Would have to go back to records to look.
Question?
Oh, can you educate us on what actually happens at the monitoring?
It depends on the exact nature of whether it's inside the buildings or outside the buildings, and we do several different types, but we have bait and sticky traps inside of the buildings where we're just trying to see what's there. We're not trying to catch everything. And that's around garbage cans and in break rooms, and generally not in the clean rooms that they might have for equipment maintenance, but sort of the areas where you might typically find insects. Outside of the buildings and in the parcels, we'll pull weeds like the ant, the Cardiocondyla kagatsuchi, which is the one ant that's along the summit access road. The only way we find it is by pulling weeds. So we'll turn over rocks, pull weeds, sort of what I refer to at least as hand searching, where you're just sort of crawling around on the ground looking for insects. I don't know, Jesse or Jessica, if you want to.
Yeah, can I just chime in? I'm Jesse Iden. I've been doing insect work on Mauna Kea for a long time now. Part of this discussion was actually concurred with my research that's on Mauna Kea from 9,000 feet up to the summit for insect work. And we were actually in our field during spring break, which was right when the majority of the protests started. It was actually on Friday when my crew, we were pulling out our last couple of pitfall traps for ants around Halepohaku and there in the Forest Reserve. So literally the day before more activity started, we were monitoring for all of the insects, natives and invasives, at that time. So that's part of why we just basically missed each other. It was happening during that week for research, just because we have classes. And then for research, again, we're starting again after the semester's over. So we try to do that every couple of months for research. Part of this is, I am happy after this meeting or whatever to show you just in the parking lot what we usually do to find insects. That's part of my manala as an educator that works with insects. We have class. I brought my class up to Mauna Kea, 9 of the students to look connected with my research around that area, and we've never found that species of ant for the past 10 years. So this is part of me. When I know these things, I tell everyone I can. Part of that is informing Fritz and OMCAM, also DOFA, and say, look, there's more activity there. I just finished looking for insects there, and I didn't find these things. Literally, I'm an advisor. I say, please look again, because there's going to be more people, more activities, more chances to move things around. So this is my responsibility too, which is why I went up there last Friday to talk to folks at the sites. Likewise, I have very informal ways to talk to folks about the insects on Mauna Kea and everywhere else, and I love to talk about it. Everyone knows that. So after this, whatever, come. I'll just go out in the parking lot and show you guys what we usually find, and how small insects are, and how they can have a very small colony in one little spot. And unless you look in everything in extreme detail, you will miss ants, especially the kind that was found up there, which is why there are very strict protocols for my research where we can't bring any plants up. I have a box that has pesticides in it, that all my gear sits in that until I move it up to the mountain. I have a high elevation and middle elevation box of gear, which is what we have to do. And I want to show everyone how it works, and how I've trained Fritz and Jessica through my experience in Mauna Kea. So part of this is me. Jessica was my intern. She's, I'm her mentor, which is upsetting for me to think that people think that she planted ants. She would never do that. She's, my kid, right? She'll be my student starting in the fall. And, we don't do public outreach in that way because we're researchers. We don't have, literally, I don't have a part of my job that is supposed to do educating all the time other than classes. But I will talk to everyone about this. It's my life, and I want to share it with everyone, but I can't do it all the time. It's only me, okay? So after this, I'm happy to stay and talk to everybody. All right? Thank you.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity to create a volunteer crew to help with the formal monitoring? I mean, I'm hearing people are concerned about protecting the mountain. I hear we got things to protect it from. Can we kind of hook them up and double your your team that's up there are quadruple and that everybody knows what's going on?
Yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't be a great idea. If we can, there's some logistics to figure out, but especially if the interest is sustained, when we can keep it sustained, then that would be a great way to help both educate, and as Jesse was alluding to, it's a problem that's not just up on the mountain, everybody has it at home. So many of us have little fire ant problems at home or elsewhere.
Will you be the first volunteer, Mike? Sign you up as the first.
After I'm done with the course.
Leo?
In addition to just the monitoring, I think some things that we are hearing is about the transparency of information and how things should. Just listening to you, I'm intrigued already. Yeah, and how does that information get across to so many people? Because I'm sure that there are concerns by other people who are not in this room about such things, that I would think such information would kind of hold Mahai Kana'au, yeah, and just rest on the out. Yeah, and I think some of these things about the timelines and things like that, I think is just setting a level of confusion in regards to transparency. Yeah, and I think more we're transparent with everybody that's concerned with Mauna Kea, I think the better off we are. Yeah, and I think sometimes, this is 30 years in education for me. Yeah, and one thing that I've always realized as an administrator is that the best transparency will get the best results. Yeah, and I think that's Pono. And I think that's done with Aloha, and I think that's something that we should all consider.
Look at the baby bunny.
Great question.
I was going to state the fact that if in fact this volunteer service could be facilitated, you have a lot of students and faculty at your disposal. I mean, most of us are college students, staff, faculty. We'd all be interested in helping that.
Absolutely, and like Stephanie was talking about, we have a volunteer program that is open to the public, and encourage people to sign up and come up and join us when we have those events as well, but that doesn't need to be the only time.
Question in the back?
I have just a little thing I wanted to say. Mahalo you guys for being so attentive to our environmental issues of conservation and preservation on Mauna Kea, but I just feel like we're missing, this cultural conservation and preservation issue here. There's no task teams for that, and I think that it's more than worthy of giving attention and energy to and preserving these cultural resources there, the significance to this place that we're all trying to manage the best that we can, And I just feel like that could be something that I think that we should put a little attention to in light of what's going on,
Mahalo very much for that comment. Just to let you know that we do, we did an archaeological inventory of the entire university lands, and we do annual monitoring of those sites. We do not post it because we do not feel, we want to protect those sites from outsiders,
Definitely, no.
So, but just to let you know that we do that. But
just malumbing the whole mountain as the sacred thing that it is,
So, yeah. And so
not just the little sites, the mountain that encompasses these sites, the mountain as a whole, as our people.
And this is what Shane was talking about, for us to move forward to try to address your concerns and these issues.
Yeah, to learn a little bit more of the significance, I think you just look at it from this scientific view and you don't understand the cultural significance of this mountain. And I think that it's very important for you folks to be sitting in those chairs making decisions about our management of our mountain without these foundational understandings. Yeah, so I think that should be.
I appreciate your comments, but you are aware that every proposal that comes to this board is reviewed on
Yes.
Kahuku Mauna.
Yes, but I feel
For
like
the
you
cultural
as your own
inspect,
self.
and that, oh, no, I agree that, and we are
To
all educated,
understand.
whether it's listening to Herring today or other people, but, you know, we are provided that opportunity on every proposal. Yes, one more question before we go on.
Sorry about that, y'all. It's just that it's interesting because you're saying, you're protecting the sites by not telling the public all that kind of stuff. I don't understand how you can be protecting the sites when you're not looking at the cultural management plan that are who you over here on the intercom is part of. You're not even looking at the plan. You never look at them for 1 year. So how can we be protecting our sites? I mean, you know, it just kind of, you get one plan, you get one hui, and then, but we're not looking really at the plan, but we're protecting our sites.
So the Cultural Resources Management Plan and the Natural Resources Management Plan were the basis for developing the Comprehensive Management Plan. So those actions, it's more in detail in the Cultural Management Plan, but the major actions of the CRMP are in the CMP, which the council has looked at and has been, has taken action on some of those actions that you're talking about.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that there's more, there isn't more that we need to do. There's a lot more that we need to do.
I do think so.
Thank you, Fritz. All right, we'll now move to new business. The first action item is the Keck Observatory request to install additional weather instruments. Stephanie, would you like to review the background report? Or Brett, you going to do that too?
I figure I'll just keep
Double
standing
duty
here.
today, huh?
Yeah. So as you said, the Keck Observatory is requesting permission to add an additional, and Rich Matsuda from Keck Observatory is here and to correct me in case I misspeak or if there are questions that I'm not familiar with. But Keck Observatory is requesting permission to add a second weather monitoring camera on the existing roof. This would be on the flat roof between the two domes. Then there's an existing weather mast that extends above the flat roof between the two domes, and they would add a precipitation sensor, a precipitation detection lamp, and some stabilizing guy wires, just attaching it to the roof to keep it from moving around. And then at the top of each of the domes, a mast that is 16 feet long, but it would actually only extend 10 feet above the existing structure, and on top of that there would be an anemometer, camera, and a precipitation sensor, and this would allow them to improve their remote operating capabilities, minimizing the staff that need to be up on the summit, allowing them to close safely when incoming weather, and as well as providing environmental data that's identified in the management plan as action items.
Okay. Board members, questions of staff regarding the report before we have any questions for Rich from Keck?
Just a comment. You know, one thing I liked about this one, you know, when I'm looking at proposals, one of the things I look for is excavation, which is none. But also to the point that there's no large trucks, which I noticed in one of the other plans, it was not put in. Yeah, because those are some of the things that would concern me. So for this one, no large trucks for transport are required, you know, so for me, it gives an understanding of some sensitivity to some of the things that they want to do. Yeah, so I really appreciate that piece. So I think when proposals come in, I think it'll behoove us again to take a look at the comprehensive proposals when they come in, especially for things like that.
All right, thank you, Lehua. All right, and no questions then. Can I have a motion? Doug? Move, a second? Second. Greg, second. Any other discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of identifying the proposed action as minimal impact, please say aye. 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 Okay. Any opposed? None opposed. So then the second motion would be to approve the proposed action. Motion. Move, Greg. Second. Roger. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, the action will carry. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Okay, the second item under new business then would be the Subaru telescope. Fritz, you going to do this one too?
Yeah, I think I'm up for all three.
Okay, good for you. Thank you.
So the Subaru telescope, and Sayako is here from Subaru, same as Rich, correct me and if there are questions. But essentially the gist of the Subaru project is access to the outside of the enclosure. It's a large straight-sided facility, and so they would like to add, essentially I think of them as aluminum I-beams to the roof of the structure, attach them to the roof of the structure, and that would allow them to have what is basically a window cleaning lift that you would see on a high-rise, but on the outside, so they can service the outside of their enclosure. The only real exterior change would be the addition of those I-beams to the roof, and that lift or scaffolding, the sort of hanging scaffolding, would be removed when it's not in use. Any overnight, it would always be put away. So it would only be in use and outdoors when it's actually actively being used. And that would allow them to service their enclosure, address safety issues as screws, things come loose and start to flap in the wind, and properly maintain the exterior of the facility.
And this does not involve any increase in square footage or ground disturbance?
Yeah, to Lehua's comment, there's no excavation involved with this, and I defer to Sayako in terms of how much material would not need to be transported up to the summit at this point.
Okay, probably, my name is Seko Hayashi. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Okay, probably about a dozen beam structures encompassing 2 tables length can be transported by our own truck to the summit. And then my field crews will bring them up to the rooftop one by one. So there is no excavation, no large truck transportation. And this is for the safety of our guys working outside. Thank you very much. No girls yet.
Fritz, I understand that anytime equipment or materials like this is brought up, it's inspected, is that correct?
That is correct, meeting the criteria, which roughly we explain to people is if it's more than what you can carry, an individual that can carry it, we inspect it. Or if it's a vehicle with 3 or more axles, we will inspect it. Or, like we referred to before, have a standing inspect or program where we've approved routine deliveries like the water trucks.
Great. Thank you, Fritz. Board members, any questions, Fritz or of the applicant? Roger?
Any heavy equipment or lifting equipment be used to put those beams in place?
I think they can access the roof from the inside of the enclosure, but defer to Seko.
Yep. If necessary, we will use the pulley and stuff to bring that up to the rooftop.
So no ground disturbance?
No.
All right.
So it's a small flatbed truck. How are the beams being transported?
Yeah, they would be. Subaru has a small flatbed truck that they would transport them up on their own truck. But
small pickup truck and a little bigger flatbed truck.
What does that mean?
Okay, we have 2 trucks. One is F-250 pickup truck, and the other is, I forget the name, I'm sorry. But we do have a flatbed truck.
What is the length of the flatbed truck? I think the point that I'm trying to make is that we're talking about the non-disturbance piece, but I don't understand what that means, flatbed truck. How long is the flatbed truck?
The truck bed? Okay, I cannot tell it in the feet, but about the size of this room, the lengthwise.
It's a big flatbed truck.
Yes, so that's what I said, big flatbed truck. Big enough to transport.
All right, the background report is recommending that the board finds, that determines this is a minimal impact. Can I have a motion for that? Move Doug. Second? Second, Greg Chun. All right, any further questions of either staff or the applicant regarding the proposed action? Okay, if no other questions, I will call for the question to determine that the proposed action has minimal impact. Please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, one opposed. The next motion will be to approve or disapprove the project. Can I have a motion, please? Moved by Doug Simons, second by Herring. Any questions of staff or applicant? If not, Hannah?
Just to verify this large flatbed truck, is it used regularly
Yes.
in the ongoing activities of the
Yes.
telescope? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, no other questions? I'll call for the question then. All of who would vote to approve the action as circulated, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? One opposed. All right, next item on the agenda.
So the next item on the agenda is with Gemini Observatory, and the Gemini staff are, okay, sorry. So there's two Gemini staff here as well. And Gemini is asking for permission to install basically several cameras and some weather instrumentation, mostly on their observatory, but a little bit on the adjacent UH-88 or UH-2.2 observatory for the purposes of allowing them to go to fully remote operations, so that there would not need to be a staff person up there, reducing the staff demands while they're observing, so that they can essentially, if everything's going well, they can monitor the dome and the weather conditions from their base operations in Hilo and control the telescope entirely from Hilo, and only need to go up if something is happening that requires it, or if there is a mechanical problem that would require support. But otherwise, they would, with the intent of reducing their amount of vehicle traffic and the number of people that need to be up on the summit. So with this, it's 5 cameras, five cloud cameras. It's quite a few cameras basically to get different views of the dome, and then the weather coming from any direction outside of the dome, and some additional 2 sets of weather sensors.
All right, is there any heavy equipment involved in placing the cameras?
No, this is simply some cameras and small weather instrumentation, and so there'd be no ground footprint. Everything would be mounted on existing infrastructure and just transported in existing crew vehicles, and the existing crew would do all the installation. Maybe an electrician to help make sure things are done to code, but otherwise it's fairly routine in terms of.
Notice that Kahuku Mauna was appreciative of the fact that it would reduce traffic and fewer people on the mountain. And the other was that they asked that the data would be shared. And I'm assuming that that's included here with the recommendation.
Yes, and that is something that we're doing essentially with all the observatory instrumentation. Not necessarily make it real-time live online, but that it is available. If there's someone that's interested, it's archived and available.
Thank you.
Fritz, sorry, Gregory.
Yeah, sure.
Question? Yeah, Fritz, just for clarification, and I can't remember if we had this discussion in our meeting, but we agreed based on the traffic going up to the mountain, but I think another concern was and how often would they go up to double check their facility? Are they still doing ongoing checks, like monthly periodic checks or something?
Tom Chun is here in case
Oh, Tom is there.
Tom is there too in case, sorry, not to put him on the spot. My understanding is the day crews will still be up there daily, so it wouldn't really change. There still will be daily staff on site. It's just the nighttime observing, reducing the number of people.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. Okay, yeah.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks, Gregory. Yeah.
Sure, thanks, Shane, for your comment. All right, any other questions of staff?
Greg, just a comment.
Yes, Tom.
My name is Tom John. I'm with the Kahuku Mauna Council. I came on about 2 years ago. I, like most of the members on this committee, volunteer. Okay. there's tremendous amount of Ike in this room. And not necessarily one side or the other, and I've been going to almost every meeting, but I sit and I listen. Because one of the things that we have is an excellent science monitor here in Fritz. You listen to him, and you gotta admire what he can deliver in terms of science. We don't have a cultural monitor at this point to come up and also deliver the same way Fritz is. The only trouble with the culture side, everybody talks about Panaeva, Keokaha, Kalamaula. Not even this island. But it doesn't matter if you have cocoa or not. Because so many of us have family that don't have cocoa, but they are family. So whether you sit on one side of the fence or the other on any particular issue, what has happened, I can see in the past, is I see things coming out in the paper about 7 years ago. Why didn't you stand up at that time? My observation is that the last 2 TMT meetings, I congratulate those people who stood up, maybe 5 guys, because they're brave, because they get in the rocks, okay? But just imagine 7 years ago when poor Case and those other guys trying to stand up, they're getting the rocks. So it's not easy when it comes down to a cultural matter of the heart. Easy to figure out how many stuff we're going to put up, how many, that you can measure, that we can fix. But when it comes down to people's feelings, cannot. So I think I would like to see a push, and I think Chancellor Australia said that he would be willing to kind of finance for culture specialists, but also if there is going to be a time when this council not getting paid and Kahukumana not getting paid, willing to sit down with the rest of the community and maybe look at the things again. Because, except for Hannah, most of these guys don't know. Except for Hannah, I don't know either. We just knew. But to go look back, but in the meanwhile, it's going to cost bucks and bucks and bucks. But good faith measure, hold up on a construction. Because while we're talking, you know, like somebody going up there and delivering stuff and wait, how come we talking? Just to kind of like keep it going. But if there is good faith, and that's what it comes down to, trust on both sides. You know, I can appreciate the astronomy community fighting for their job and for the fact that they have a feeling of higher here, but you guys also. When I say you guys, me too, but you know, I cannot put my hat one side or the other because then I get labeled. Yeah? So me, I don't know if I'm like a mule, half-ass, half-ass, you know. So, both sides. But that's the way it is. That you guys, I can see that in the future, if things gonna be partnering up, nobody gets everything. But what is reasonable, people gotta talk. But if you just come with the idea like, I'm not gonna give anything, there may be, you know, Paulette, that name gonna come up pretty soon, July 31st, what? Flag Day, Paulette, George Paulette took over Hawaii. He said, Britain, we're under British rule. Admiral Thomas came back and said, man, this is wrong. Okay, but you see, at one time, the king had to give away temporarily, but he gave away the islands, sovereignty for a little while, 5-6 months, but he came back. So sometimes we cannot see the end. It's going to take time. But if we can keep talking and not press the button. Yeah, because I hate to see anybody get hurt on this side. Okay, mahalo.
Thank you, Tom. All right, losing track here now. Have we had a motion to approve? All right. I guess the first motion is to deter, sorry. Corey.
Question about the cameras, will these be video or still cameras, and will they be taking pictures of people around observatories?
I can start, and maybe Gemini staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but the intent is for them to take pictures of the dome, the conditions of the dome, and the weather, the surrounding weather. Sometimes people are in the camera field of view, but they're not intended for monitoring people. They're intended for monitoring the weather and the workings of the dome. And generally, they are still cameras in that they're taking a frame, a photo at a set interval that I think they can adjust, but that can be composited into a time lapse, but it's not a video camera per se.
Do they swivel around, or they just stay in pointed one direction?
Some of them can swivel and some of them are fixed. So depending on again, their interest in the weather and, like the field of view with the weather, if you're trying to look for clouds coming up and maybe you want to be able to pan a little bit from east to west or whatever, that might be a variable as opposed to some that are fixed where it's just stationary on the dome.
Yeah, I understand that they are mainly for the weather and looking at the dome, but they could for the people also.
Yeah. And most of the cameras that are on, the Mauna Kea Weather Center has an array of webcams that are available, and it'd be sort of that standard type of camera and interface that anyone that are publicly accessible.
Okay, so on lots of the observatories, there are cameras that can see the people
Yep.
around the observatory.
And if you go to the Mauna Kea Weather website, Mauna Kea Weather Center website, you can see many of those cameras that are publicly available for the streams.
One more question. The additional weather sensors that are off-site, how are those linked back to the facility? Is it wireless?
It would not be wireless, it would be through an internet connection.
Okay, so it's existing wires that are there.
Yeah.
No trenching.
No ground disturbance or trenching.
All right. Any other questions of staff or the applicant? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to determine that the project could have minimal impact. Motion? Second, Greg Chun. So that was the motion by Doug Simons and second by Greg Chun. Okay, call the question now. All in favor of determining the proposed placement of these cameras as having minimal impact, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. The second part would be then to recommend approval of the proposed action. I have a motion, please. So moved. Hannah Springer with the motion. Second. Doug Simons. Any other questions? If not, call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, that concludes the new business. Stephanie, do we have any announcements? Okay, no announcements, and the next meeting, as usual, will be determined after a review by staff of availability of people here. Hannah, would you like to make any comments about future meetings? I know we discussed something ahead of time about the scope of the meetings, and do you want to make any comment at this time?
Just I look forward to meetings where we'll be able to discuss the Mauna as a whole in the context of the charge that we accepted when we applied to sit on the Mauna Kea Management Board. And those are my comments earlier, that whether it's in a regularly scheduled business meeting that may have a single agenda item, or in the form of a retreat for us, among the things that I've suggested, and I'll offer this now for you folks to consider, might be for whether Pua Kanahele or Taupori to come and offer to us the Papapu Makavalu curriculum as just to introduce all of us to what some of us have the Ike, but how to see, how to gather information, how it's stored and how it's discussed, among other things. And if I could just say that some of the comments today that have been as if the Cultural Resources Management Plan is sitting somewhere and has not yet been reviewed. It's used actively in all of the decisions, and if you'd like to stay later, we can talk a little bit more about that. But I thank Steph for hearing my concerns, and for you, Greg, for making provision for them. Thank you. Thank you both.
Well, thank you, Anna. I think one of the things is that clearly over the last year or two, the primary focus of our activity has been on the astronomy. There are other uses for the Mauna, and that's, it would be nice to be able to get back to the educational and cultural and public access issues and not be totally focused on astronomy. So anyway, thank you for your comments, Hannah. Thanks for the tap on the shoulder. Okay, if there's nothing else to come before us, I'd like to adjourn the meeting as, excuse me, Dwight?
Yeah. My name is Dwight Vicente. I'm speaking on behalf of the Wine Kingdom. The lease is in question. There is no demise lands here. The mountain is designated crown lands. And being crown lands, the kingdom cannot die. The king may die or the queen may die, but the kingdom exists. So I think that lease should be brought to question. The only problem is kangaroo courts here have no jurisdiction. If you read the Admission Act, it states 5F lands. There's no 5F lands here. You may find that in Ohio, Michigan, under the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. But that ordinance does not apply to this kingdom. And they applied it to this kingdom back in 1875 with the Reciprocity Treaty. That's where the kingdom's problems all began. And I think that has to go up to the U.S. District Court in D.C. to strike down as a void treaty. And the other one is the Queen's Protest of January 17, 1893. That is yet to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, original but limited jurisdiction only over U.S. Minister Stevens. The U.S. courts have no jurisdiction over this kingdom. So I think the lease has to be brought into question. You have no valid lease. So with that, I'll end with the reservation of the Queen's Protest of January 17. It is yet to make its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, original but limited jurisdiction only over U.S. Minister Stevens. And the other one is the application of the Northwest Ordinance to this kingdom under the Reciprocity Treaty of 1875. Thank you.
All right, Dwight, thanks for your comments as usual. And I'll just point out that obviously this board doesn't have the authority or jurisdiction to address the concerns that you've raised, but I do appreciate you continuing to raise them. Thank you. All right, I'd like to adjourn.
Just want to say, I find it extremely disappointing that despite the historic events surrounding the 30-meter telescope over the past several weeks on Mauna Kea, there was nothing from the staff or on the agenda about that. Greg, I was glad to hear you talk about focusing more on the cultural aspect and the environmental aspect. I'm really glad that people came and shared their thoughts and their perspective in a very respectful way to, really increase the communication. It says a lot about this committee that it didn't come from the staff, wasn't on the agenda, but I'm glad it was discussed and listened to, and that thoughts were shared.
Well, thank you for your comments. I think we try to keep this this board is focused on implementing the comprehensive management plan and the various sub-plans and making sure that all of the activities on the mountain are consistent with those plans. And we're not an advocacy group for or against any particular proposal. We try to make sure that we're advocating for the compliance with the comprehensive management plan. I mean, these plans were created by the community through hundreds and hundreds of public meetings, and it's our duty, our responsibility, and I will point out, as Herring has earlier, we're all serving here as volunteers, is to make sure these plans are complied with. So if as proposals come forward, that's our responsibility. But thank you for your comments. So at this point, I would like to adjourn and thank you all for your patience. And thank you for coming.
Thanks, Gregory. I appreciate the opportunity to call in.
Thank you, Shane.
Talk to you guys later.
Right over by the pools, right in that little spot. Anybody wants to look for blue sidewalk tours? I'm seeing Leonard.